You've heard the stories of Harrenhal, your grace. It's built in hubris by Harren the Black as a monument to his own greatness. Blood mixed into the mortar. It is said to be a cursed place, that it passes judgment on all who pass beneath its gates.
You pass judgment.
The Queen makes a wish. What servant of the realm would not strive to fulfill it? I assume you will write to your father now?
Larys, I did not wish for this.
I feel certain you will reward me. When the time is right.
You know, we have seen the Game of Thrones franchise explode in such a huge way. So what's it like for you to join this franchise?
It's very interesting. Yeah, it's such a big world to be part of. It's really nice. It's a very you sort of expect it to be some sort of like unfeeling monolith because it's so huge, but actually it's everyone's very loving. It's a very friendly environment to be part of. People are looking out for each other. It's really nice. It's a nice family to be part of.
That's cool. And have you had like a lot of interactions with like the fan base yet? Like what's that been like for you since Game of Thrones is such and House of the Dragon has such a huge following?
It's a big following. I mean, so far everyone's been really lovely. All the interactions have been very positive so far. It's been really nice. Everyone's been very very generous and very nice.
Okay, cool. And so in House of the Dragon, you play Sir Loras Strong, who, you know, you didn't appear very much in like throughout the season as much of the other characters, but like each time you did, you left quite a memorable impression on audiences. So how do you get into the mind of such a manipulative and cold character?
No, that's very no, I don't know. I mean, he's only on screen for I might be wrong, but it's something like 13 minutes, 13 and a bit minutes. But within that time, he does just these really mad things and quite nefarious things. So, but you're right. He's sort of, I was sort of him as someone who's sort of out of focus and slowly coming into focus. And I don't think he's focus yet. But I think it's just from trauma. I think he's obviously a very, very disturbed person. Grew up with this debilitating disability that's, you know, in the world he's grown up in does not look very kindly on like him. And I think he carries that resentment and I think taking revenge on the world. I can sort of understand it from that point of view.
Yeah, it's such a interesting contrast too, because when you know you say that the world's been cruel to him, yeah, we look at his family, you know, his father who becomes the Hand at one point, and then his brother, and they're both not sorry, unkindly figures. They both seem very loving and not the type of people to like look down on Loras for his limp. So it's very interesting how he became that way.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's sort of what makes it worse is that he could easily come from like a very abusive household, but just the idea, and this is all just like suggestions, isn't it? There's no big in-depth family scenes. It's just suggestions and you drawing conclusions from what you've seen. The fact that Harwin, I think, is a very loving, good man, and that line with his father is like the best man in Westeros. You know, the only man to really give the king sort of like advice that's for the good of the realm rather than the good of his seat or him. You know, it's I think these are good people. I think that's what makes his actions even worse. I remember saying to Ryan Core, who played Harwin, like I was like, people are going to hate me hate me because I'm going to take you away from them.
Mhm.
But he was like, oh, shut up, no. But it's true, and it is true. I think the fact that he takes away someone as just like wonderful as Ryan is, as Harwin, and someone fundamentally good as Gavin, as Lionel is, for someone who had, you know, they haven't like done anything to hurt me. They've just sort of helped me enough to get rid of. Is quite a sinister person.
Yeah, for sure. And now, like I mentioned, Game of Thrones is such like a huge thing now in pop culture, and that it and House of the Dragon, they share like the same world, and obviously they share the same fan base and level of dedication too. But they're both like very different shows thematically and like in what they explore as well. So what do you think are some of the differences like for you between Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon?
I think Game of Thrones is so wonderful because it's this really beautifully rich, expansive sort of tapestry, isn't it? Of the variety of worlds and people that you meet is so vast. Whereas I think House of the Dragon is a slightly more focused look at a smaller group of people, and one's, you know, it's called the House of the Dragon. I don't want to say focused, but that its viewpoint is narrower. I think it's just focused on them, I think.
Yeah, and you know, like I mentioned, Larys, like we only see him in like a few certain scenes throughout the season, and you said like he might have like 13 minutes of screen time in the whole season, but and yet he's still this captivating character because, like you said, you don't know that much about him. A lot of his history and motivations are suggested. So was that when you came into the role, was that a bit of a challenge for you in creating like your take on the character, like just not knowing uh, much about him, or did like George R. R. Martin and the other showrunners leave a lot of info for you?
No, the hardest thing about it was that my schedule was so sporadic. So the show, I would come in for like a day or 2 days, and then I'd disappear for months, you know, and then come back. So every day felt a little bit like the first day of school. You know, it's a bit anxiety inducing to sort of rock up and do it. Everyone was very, very supportive and helpful, and really, it's a really wonderfully collaborative experience. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't also quite an anxiety-inducing one. So that was my problem, was just that ever so slightly never could sort of be there enough to sort of feel like, oh, I got it. Here now, I got this. Like, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting that at some point, but that was my experience.
With season 2 coming, you just said like you hope to get a little more time. Like what are your wishes that you'd like to see Larys do or explored with his character?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was told to not to sort of not mention anything, I'm afraid. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, all very secretive. I know. But you know, the funny thing is about how you say you came in like months apart. The primary character that you always like shared a scene with most of the time was Allison Hightower. So, who in the show, she's first played as a teenager by Emma Carey, and then she's played as adult by Olivia Cook. So what was that transition like for you then, to maybe like work with Olivia one day and then work with Emma the next, or like?
Well, I only had, I mean, I was in scenes with Emily, but I only had one, like, just duologue with her, and we were talking about the flowers, and
Yeah.
so 5, I think. She's just extraordinary. I mean, they both are. I mean, it's just, there was no problem. No, there was never any like, oh, this is a bit weird. Like when actors are that good and that right for the character, there's no problem at all. It was just joy, really.
Yeah, I found them really good because for as an audience, like just that transition between the two, it seemed really seamless. Like Olivia played like a very grown up version of Allison that just seemed like quite an extension of Emily. Like it didn't seem jarring for an audience at all.
Yeah, we were all slightly like, oh god, what's the jump going to be like? But it was great.
Yeah. And it's they have quite an interesting relationship, Allison and Larys, in how like it seems like he slowly becomes, you know, her confidant, but then you get to the final scene with the two of them and it's that like foot scene, and it's how did it get to that?
Yeah, I always thought with I like that because up till then, that scene, I always thought, especially in 7, there's something really like goofy about Larys. Like there's this, he's slightly like this sort of like a dog sort of,
Yeah.
anything for him, and then that happens. I always think with Larys and Allison, it's that first scene they have together in the garden where he's talking about the I don't know if you remember, there's this convallaria, this flower that is indigenous to another place and shouldn't be growing where it is, but somehow all odds has managed to thrive in this area. Sort of the similarities between that and both of these characters. And then years later, when after he's killed Harwin and Lionel, he's in her chambers, and we had it that he was playing with the same flower and that he had brought it.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. Yeah.
I can't remember what we did, but that was the idea that there's this flower which is growing and thriving, and he has cut it and potted it and is now in charge of whether it lives or dies.
Yeah.
I think is his relationship with Allison, and you think it's this sort of twisted, benevolent one, but actually, I think in 9, when it becomes quite apparent that that is an act of domination, foot thing. I don't think he's sexually aroused by feet. I think it's the fact that she's like kicked off her shoes before. And I think for someone like Larys, who is a very disturbed and damaged person, that is offensive. That's a slight for somebody to just casually shoes, and it's sort of like, well, I can just imagine it becoming about, well, how do you want my eyes on you? Do you want me to look at you? Is that what you want? It's a way of sort of and crushing and keeping someone in line and control.
All right. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me, Matthew. I loved your role on the show, and I'm looking forward to whatever you've got planned for season 2.
Great. Thank you so much. It was lovely to speak to you.
Yeah. Thank you.